Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. I feel very privileged to speak in this very distinguished forum. And I also feel very happy, actually, to have the possibility to experience the most extraordinary events that are shaking the whole Middle East and maybe shaking the whole world. Actually, it's not very often that one can say that one has lived many historical events in one's life, but most of you, as myself, have went through the most amazing things in Europe 20 years ago, and now we are living things that hopefully would bring us all to a similar situation in a region which we thought would never be able of such things. However, I had the possibility, the occasion to cover events in Tunisia and in Egypt. Unfortunately, I was not allowed into Libya because although I have a European passport, the Libyan authorities said that due to the fact that I was born in Haifa, there is a risk that I might be Israeli and therefore I can't get into the country. However, based on the experiences that I gathered in these two countries, I would like to give you my impressions of what is happening in the Middle East. And I must tell you that as somebody who has been working on the Middle East for quite a while, I really feel very much happy and enthusiastic about all what is happening right now. And I think that I feel almost obliged to feel optimistic because none of us was expecting these events to happen. We didn't give the people of the peoples of this region the credit that they would be able to do it, and they've done it. So I would like to hope that they would also know how to use this extraordinary chance that they have to move forward and not to fall backwards. Now, the new situation in the Middle East, actually we should talk about situations in the Middle East, offer all of us three extraordinary opportunities. I think first of all it's a golden opportunity for the people of the region to stand up for their rights and for their freedom, and they are doing it and they are paying the price for it. A word that I heard again and again during the talks that I had with people in Tunisia and in Egypt was, we want respect, we want to be respected. And I truly believe that those people who were willing to sacrifice their life in order to achieve what they believe in deserve every possible respect from us, from all of us. Because we are spoiled, we live in democracy, and we don't have to do what they've done, and really we have to appreciate it. However, respect, which is due, doesn't mean that we have to blindly accept everything that is being said. And I think that we, with all respect that we might feel towards what is happening there, we should avoid any feelings of euphoria and blindness that has guided the position of many of us in past years regarding the Middle East. I think that we have to be very alert to what is happening in the Middle East, not only for our sake, but for the sake of those who expect us, I mean, especially Europeans, Westerns, etc., but also Democrats in Israel, to help them in finding the way to democracy and freedom. And believe it or not, among the real Democrats among Arab countries, you do hear again and again people who are saying that Israel is for them a source of inspiration, despite every possible critique that they might have towards certain Israeli policies. The fact that Israel has been a democracy for years in such a region is an inspiring force. As I said, I don't think that we should be blind for the sake of us and for the sake of the others, and we should be very careful by following what is happening in the region. We tend to romanticize our position towards the Middle East. I mean, it's also easy. Think about all the Hollywood films about the sheikhs and the paradise, the desert paradises that influenced our youth. However, we all know that democracy could not be achieved in a miraculous action. Democracy is a very hard process, democracy is a very hard work, and even when democracy is achieved, it's a very fragile thing. Just think about the situation in many European countries, and I'm not only talking about the Central and Eastern young democracies, I also speak about democracies like Greece, Spain, even France, what they are facing nowadays. And therefore, I think that while trying to help those nations to build, hopefully, democracies, we should be aware of many things. First of all, democratization, only democratization can lead to democracy, and democratization is a very long process. Free elections is not democracy. We have experienced in the region itself 2 cases in which very rapidly organized free elections in Algeria at the beginning of the 90s and in the Palestinian autonomous territories 2006 brought to power parties who had absolutely nothing to do with democracy, and that has led both nations, the Algerian and the Palestinian, to a very difficult situation. And I think that conclusions should be learned from this situation. We should not push, as we did in the past, for fast elections, but see that the elections would also be accompanied by a real democratization and education for democracy process. Secondly, I think that it is extremely important to understand that democracy in every stage of its development is a very fragile thing. There are forces who would probably try to use this fragility in order to create situations that would cause the end of democracy. I'm thinking about the still existing structures of the old regimes in those countries who have already reached some sort of change, and especially in countries that have not, in which the process has not started yet. But I'm also thinking about parties, especially Islamic movements. I'm not talking about Muslim movements or parties, but Islamist movements who have absolutely nothing to do with democracy, who do not believe in democratic ideals and values, and who see in democracy a bad idea being imported from the West. Now, if those parties and organizations would be allowed to take part in the democratization process, the risk is very high that they would use a situation of quarrel between democratic parties in order to get into power. And once they're in power, they would probably try to do what the Algerian FIS party and what the Hamas in the Palestinian territory have done, which is to take absolute power into their hands and to change the situation in favor of their ideology. Now, I would really not like to be misunderstood on this point. My estimation of this possible development is in no way an absolute rejection of any political role played by religious Muslim parties. I think I'm not so aware of the situation here in Ireland, but I do believe that religion does have a certain political influence in politics here. In Germany, you have 2 political parties right now in power, which in their name have the word Christianity. And even in Israel, we have religious parties. Therefore, I don't think that we have the right in any way to come and to say that Muslim parties are not allowed to be part of the democratic game. However, if they are part of the democratic game, they have to accept the rules of the game. And so far, it is not really the situation that we know. And one should not, as being somebody who lives and somebody who works in Germany, one should not forget the German experience of the 30s, in which through democratical process and procedures, a very anti-democratic party came to power, got the power, and destroyed Germany and Europe. Now, what is happening in the region, I believe, is also a great chance for all of us living outside the region to release or to free ourselves from all the false ideas and perceptions that we had regarding the Middle East. It was very easy for most governments in the West to deal with the regimes that we still have in most of those countries, because we thought, well, you know, so Arabs, Muslims, they're not capable of being democrats. It has to do with their tradition, with their past, with their religion, and it's very easy to get into deals with Gaddafis and Mubaraks and much worse leaders that we have in the region. Think about Iran. Everybody is dealing with the government of Iran as if it was a legitimate and normal one. I think that we have now a wonderful opportunity to understand how complex the Middle East is and how specific every situation in every country is, and stop dealing with this area as if it was a whole. The situation in Tunisia is extremely different from the situation in Egypt, and the situation in Egypt is different from the one in Bahrain, and all of a sudden we are discovering, I mean, the large public discovers that. However, we should not discover what we are learning now, because this is not going to disappear. And even within the countries themselves, we are dealing all of a sudden not with majorities, but with minorities who come up and ask the right to have the rights. I'm thinking about the Copts in Egypt. I'm thinking about now they have become the minority, but the Christians in Lebanon, and I'm thinking about the majority of Shiites in Bahrain. I think about the majority of Shiites in Lebanon as well. I think about the majority of Shiites in Iraq, which, thanks to the American involvement, for the first time in the history of Iraq, actually came to power, and they are participating fully and democratically in the governing of their own country. So we really have to leave old false perceptions about what is the Middle East. Maybe we should start thinking about the possibilities that the Middle East would not be the Middle East that we know nowadays. The experience that we are having right now in Sudan could be followed in other places in the region. Sudan, everybody took for granted that it's going to stay as it is. It is being divided soon. It could be the situation in Iraq, it could be the situation in Egypt, it could be the situation in Libya. We have to listen to what people want and not dictate our vision of the world as we believe it should be. The age of colonization is far behind us. And I believe it's also a great chance for us to, Europeans and Westerns, to start understanding and accepting that the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians is not the origin of all conflicts in the region. If Shiites are being suppressed by a Sunnite monarchy in Bahrain, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Israelis and the Palestinians. If Gaddafi decides to bombard the opposition forces, which he has repressed until now for over 40 years, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And even if a Copt church is being blown on the eve of the New Year in Alexandria, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Each of this country has many, many problems of itself, and until now, the governments of the region had this policy of saying, well, we don't want to deal with these problems because there is this conflict with the Israelis, which has to be first priority, and we have to deal with it first of all. Now, we discover all of a sudden that this is really not the case. And I think that we have to learn consequences from what is happening right now. And by the way, since you have started talking about the recent tragic events, which started not only yesterday or the day before yesterday. Allow me to remind you the slaughter of the family, including 3 children in the settlement of Itamar 10 days ago, and the fact that we are experiencing since 10 days the very strong increase of rocket firing from the Gaza Strip on Israeli territories. I think that the Palestinians would also have to accept the fact that they are not anymore the center of attention of the region and of the world, and that maybe this would bring them eventually to responsibly react to the situation and to think about getting a little bit more realistic about the situation and possibilities of solution. I'm afraid, however, that the radical groups within the Palestinian population would do all what they can in order to create an escalation, a military escalation with Israel, so that they would be able to kidnap the the democratic movements in the Arabic world, so that people would not only think that they are cry for their freedom, but would also cry for the destruction of the state of Israel. And this is the third great opportunity which I see in the current situation. And this is an opportunity for peace. One of the main problems with the peace process so far was that we had peace of leaders, which means that we had leaders meeting, we had leaders negotiating, we had leaders signing agreements, which the populations of the countries regarded didn't really feel connected to. And we came to a very complicated situation in the non-democratic countries who signed peace with Israel, in which the leaders who signed the peace agreements always said, well, actually, we cannot really exercise peace with the Israelis because the public opinion is very much against it. It's irony of history that in the streets of Cairo during the huge demonstrations against Mubarak was treated almost by every anti-demonstrator as agent of Israel, while as Mubarak has done everything that he could to stop peace with Israel during 30 years. It's only in the last 2 years when he realized that there is a common interest to fight the Hamas and the Hezbollah, because they were actually threatening his own regime, that he started a military cooperation with the Israelis, not because he discovered that peace could be in any way constructive for him, but because he understood that it was serving his interest. And on the other side, we had the population, especially the elites of the population, rejecting peace because it came from the leadership who was non-democratic. So actually we had two situations, two peace agreements, who had absolutely nothing to do with peace. We have been actually losing 30 years, which we could have used into bringing people together, better knowledge, and have done absolutely, I mean, just try to imagine where the Middle East would have been today had peace between Israel and Egypt really have been peace in the last 30 years. I think that it would have been much easier to convince the Israelis to go beyond what they've already gone in order to achieve peace, had they had the feeling that all what they have given for peace was fruitful. However, unfortunately, what we see today, and this is coming from the so-called democratic camp in Egypt, for example, is a rejection of the peace agreement. One of the major points of the democratic opposition is a call to reopen negotiation on the peace agreement with Israel, and this can be extremely disastrous for anybody who really believes that there could be any day peace in the Middle East, because just imagine what Israeli would like to sign today peace with the Palestinians, knowing that if tomorrow there is some sort of revolution or whatever, the Palestinians would come in 10, 20, 30 years and would tell us, well, guys, it's a new situation, we have to reopen the peace process and the peace agreement, and let's talk about your existence, let's talk about giving us Haifa, Jaffa, or whatever. This would be disastrous. And this is why I really believe that when we talk about democracy, the democratic forces, those who fight for democracy in the Middle East, should also very clearly state their commitment to the idea of peace and to all agreements that have been signed in the past. This is very important. Another thing which is extremely important, and I think that we have to raise this issue even if many people wouldn't like to see it, there is a very worrying phenomenon among I saw it in Tunisia, I felt it much strongly in Egypt, and also regarding the situation in Libya. This tendency to accuse Israel of being responsible for everything that is happening in the Middle East, which is not a new phenomenon, but it's becoming much more acute since, for example, in Egypt, when I was with the anti-Mubarak demonstrators, they all said that actually Mubarak is an agent of the Israelis, he was doing what the Israelis wanted, and actually it would be best that he would go to Tel Aviv because he doesn't understand what they are telling him in Arabic since he speaks Hebrew. And then I moved to the pro-Mubarak camp, and they were all accusing the anti-Mubarak demonstrators of being financed by Israel, which means that whatever you do, whatever you look at, Israel is behind it. There was on Al Jazeera English 2 days ago a very important person of the Libyan opposition in Benghazi accusing Gaddafi of actually using the Israeli army to bombard the rebels in his area. And it goes into extremities, but these are cases that happened before, and I would not go too much into it, but if you think that last summer a German tourist in Sinai was attacked by a shark, and that the Egyptian tourism ministry came up with the warning that Israel is training sharks to attack tourists coming to Egypt to destroy the tourist industry in Egypt, we have a problem which is extremely problematic for any positive development in the area. Let me just give you some examples which I had while staying in Cairo during the beginning of the revolt. This is a newspaper which was published, of the opposition, which was published on the day that the movement, the anti-Mubarak movement started, the day of the first massive demonstration. And he comes up here, I don't know if there's anybody speaking Arabic here, but the headline of this newspaper is saying that the international Zionism is standing behind, is organizing actually the religious Bürgerkrieg, civil war in Egypt. And this is referring not to what happened the same day, but to the explosion that took place in the Copt church in Alexandria with dozens of dead persons. A week afterwards, already we are in the huge mobilization against Mubarak. This is another opposition newspaper, Adustur. He came up with the invention that the Israelis are actually plotting to use the anarchy in Egypt to occupy Sinai again. Now, we are not dealing anymore with facts, and these are newspapers that people are reading. It's not, Bugs Bunny newspaper for drunken people who have absolutely... These are serious opposition newspapers. People read it and believe what they read, and this is just two examples of what's happening. Much worse things have been published in recent years before the movement started and are being published nowadays. And the worrying thing is that government and opposition together had always just one common ground which they were united on, and that was accusing Israel of everything that was going wrong. Now, democracy, with all due respect, and you know it very much, and this is very painful, but this is the price of democracy and freedom, is taking responsibility of one's actions and doings. However, in our region, we have a very long tradition and mentality of throwing responsibility on others. The very basic reaction that you get from any Arab or Muslim person that you, I don't know, you want to meet tomorrow, or you want to sign a deal with, or whatever, is inshallah, which means throwing the responsibility on Allah, which is great. But then there was the responsibility of the regimes, the responsibilities of the kings, of the presidents, of this and that. And when things really started going wrong, there was obviously the responsibilities of the West, the Jews, and the Israelis. Now, if people would not start getting rid of it, I don't see how democracy would ever function in the Middle East. And I think that as somebody who is really interested, and believe me, I wish I could have stood with all those people, including those Iranians, fighting for their democracy and for freedom, and demonstrate with them. I cannot do it in many countries. I really wish them luck, and I really wish them success. But there should be an open discussion about what we are talking at all about, and if we want to start a new Middle East, we should really start from the basis. And the basis right now is unfortunately not as promising as I would have liked it to be. Thank you very much.